Before humanity carved its first symbols into stone, the Orion constellation was already burning with war. Every major civilization on Earth, separated by oceans and millennia, all fixated on one specific cluster of stars. They weren't looking for beauty. They were tracking a war. In the sands of Egypt, Orion was Osiris, the lord of the afterlife. To the Maya, it was the cosmic hearth. To the Dogon of Mali, it was the origin of sky gods who came in spinning ships of fire. But beneath the myths was a pattern, and like all good patterns, it wasn't coincidence. It was a record, because for those who knew where to look, Orion wasn't just a constellation, it was the battlefield of a galactic civil war. Something's wrong in Orion. Betelgeuse, the giant red star near Orion's shoulder, is dying. Or more accurately, it's unstable. Scientists say it could go supernova any time in the next 100,000 years, but in 2019, it dimmed. Fast. A 25% drop in brightness. No supernova. No collapse, just shadows. But here's the kicker. That exact star appears in at least 12 ancient texts across 5 continents, and almost every single one refers to it as the fallen flame. How did they know? What did they see? The Great Pyramids aren't just tombs, they're coordinates, aligned perfectly with the stars of Orion's belt. Zoom out to Teotihuacan in Mexico, same thing. Even Nabta Playa, a 7,000-year-old megalithic site in the Nubian desert, forms an astronomical map locked on Orion. This wasn't decorative. It was deliberate. These weren't civilizations worshipping stars. They were marking territory. Because at the time, Orion wasn't just a beacon. It was an active zone. In the 1930s, French anthropologists visited the Dogon tribe. They expected folklore. What they got was astrophysics. The Dogon described the Sirius star system with eerie accuracy, including a second invisible star, Sirius B, that wouldn't be confirmed by telescopes until decades later. They also described visitors, nomos, who came from a system near Orion. They arrived in watery ships, altered human DNA, and vanished. Where did that knowledge come from? There were no telescopes in ancient Mali, just oral memory, or maybe inherited data. In the 1930s, French anthropologists visited the Dogon tribe. They expected folklore. What they got was astrophysics. The Dogon described the Sirius star system with eerie accuracy, including a second invisible star, Sirius B, that wouldn't be confirmed by telescopes until decades later. They also described visitors, nomos, who came from a system near Orion. They arrived in watery ships, altered human DNA, and vanished. Where did that knowledge come from? There were no telescopes in ancient Mali, just oral memory, or maybe inherited data. For years, the Orion War theory sat in the dusty corners of UFO lore. Exohistorians and rogue academics claim that multiple extraterrestrial factions fought for dominance of the Orion arm, that Earth was a strategic outpost, that the war spilled over, that it never ended. Mainstream science scoffed until 2015. NASA's Kepler telescope detected a strange dimming star, KIC 8462852, not in Orion, but close. The light dropped in a way that shouldn't happen naturally. Some suggested comets, others megastructures. Suddenly, the question wasn't if something artificial existed out there, it was where and how long it had been watching. There's a reason ancient maps point to Orion. A reason pyramids shadow its stars. A reason tribes with no contact told the same story. Orion was sacred, because Orion was scarred. From that scar came power, and fire, and memory. But as we'll see in the next chapter, it also birthed empires. Empires that never forgave. They weren't gods. They were architects of war, Orion wasn't their home. It was their crucible. And what they built there reshaped the galaxy forever. Long before Earth, before even the spiral arms formed cleanly. Orion was divided between 3 empires, each with a banner, a belief, and a weapon to match. 1. The Lyran High Clans, keepers of flame. The Lyrans were the oldest. Think philosophers with planetary-scale weapons. They believed in star seeding, planting life to outlast death. But when their colonies were attacked, they chose retaliation. They didn't just defend, they erased. Whole moons cracked in half, light turned to glass. Their motto? Creation through ruin. 2. The Orion Council, a republic of shadows. Next came the Orion Council, the builders of Betelgeuse Prime, masters of biotechnology. Their warships weren't metal, they were alive. Organic dreadnoughts with bone-plated hulls and neural cores, bred in oceans of liquid memory. They were not warmongers, but they were paranoid. Every treaty was lined with traps, every ally a future pawn, and when pushed, they turned their enemies into tools. 3. The Grey Dynasty, the Gene Thieves. The Greys weren't born, they were designed. A hybrid empire of synthetic biology and stolen DNA. Their origin is unknown, their motives, efficiency, their methods, invasive. They mastered neural hijacking, biocloaking, and interdimensional extraction. To them, war wasn't a contest, it was an equation, and they never lost. Across the Orion sector, entire suns vanished without warning. Planets melted from the inside. These weren't natural disasters. They were phase shift detonations, weapons that ruptured dimensions. The Greys deployed time lattice collapsers, devices that age stars by centuries in minutes. The Lyrans countered with quantum inversion cannons, implosions that folded reality in on itself. And the Orion Council? They didn't just kill, they harvested consciousness. Captured minds were encrypted, stored, and weaponized as predictive warfare AI. They didn't fight you, they predicted you and erased you before you moved. Eventually, there was peace, or something that looked like it. The Treaty of Tyrannus, a ceasefire carved into the crust of a dead exoplanet. Each empire withdrew, borders were drawn. But under the silence, a secret war bloomed. Espionage, genetic sabotage, deep rift surveillance arrays. The Orion Belt became a no-fly zone, but not because it was sacred, because it was rigged. The peace held for exactly 6 of our Earth years, until Betelgeuse cracked open. On year 6 or 13, sensors picked up a phase anomaly inside Betelgeuse. Thought to be a natural instability, it wasn't. The Lyrans accused the Greys. The Greys blamed the Council. The Council deployed something called Project Maelstrom, and in the space of 72 hours, a star died, a system vanished, and an empire collapsed inward. To this day, no one knows exactly who fired first, but someone survived, and someone remembered. They carried the last secrets of Orion across space, and buried them in the last place anyone would look, inside the code of a species just smart enough to question, but too fragile to fight back. Betelgeuse didn't just collapse. It was taken, targeted, broken from the inside. The death of that star wasn't the end of peace. It was the start of annihilation. Betelgeuse was never just a star. It was a command core embedded with a tri-layer reactor system capable of controlling 11 nearby planetary colonies. Its pulse? Synced with Council AI networks across the Orion sector. and on cycle 6413.14, that pulse stuttered. 1 nanosecond, then another, then a full spectrum blackout. Council technicians detected something no one could explain. Reverse entropy. Time folding backward inside the star's core. A sabotage method theorized but never confirmed by the Greys. It meant one thing. A temporal implant had been placed inside the reactor thousands of years earlier and just activated. It was an assassin weapon that waited generations to strike. And when it did, the results were apocalyptic. First, the magnetic fields collapsed. Then came the core implosion, unleashing a tetrad shockwave, a 4-dimensional rupture that didn't just destroy space, but corrupted time around it. Colonies didn't just burn, they de-aged, then rotted in reverse. Council ships trying to escape vanished, reappearing minutes before the blast, already in pieces. In just 7.2 seconds, 48 inhabited planets lost contact. In 22.4, Betelgeuse itself was gone. Not a supernova, just erased. To the Lyrans, this was betrayal. They had warned the Council years before that peace with the Greys was a death sentence. They were right. Within hours of the star's collapse, Lyran Phoenix dreadnoughts ignited their engines. They didn't send diplomats. They sent planet quenchers, ships designed to extinguish entire biospheres. Target, Zeta Reticuli, suspected Grey stronghold. Time to arrival, 6 hours. But the Greys were ready. Before the dreadnoughts could arrive, the system vanished from radar. Literally blinked out of gravitational mapping. The Greys had deployed a phase envelope, a defensive pocket that shifted Zeta Reticuli 1.2 degrees sideways through space-time. The Lyrans hit nothing but shadow. Then came the real horror. Lyran command ships began receiving messages, not broadcasts. Visions. Entire bridge crews dropped unconscious. When they woke, they all said the same thing. "We saw it. We saw how it ends, and none of us survive." What happens to a dying star light years away? Its deathlight eventually arrives. And in 1054 AD, Earth saw it. Ancient Chinese astronomers recorded a guest star in the sky, so bright it could be seen in daylight for weeks. Modern science blames a supernova, but what if it wasn't a natural event? What if Earth was witnessing the delayed funeral of a murdered system? And what if that was only a warning shot? After Betelgeuse, the war didn't rage. It went cold. Entire fleets vanished. Spy satellites were found gutted from the inside, with their AI cores inverted, feeding intel backward through time. The battlefield wasn't space anymore. It was perception, memory, and DNA. Because when stars die, their children become weapons. What if Earth wasn't made to thrive, but to forget? What if this quiet planet was seeded not with life, but with a lie? After the fall of Betelgeuse, survivors fled, but not all of them escaped in warships. Some carried no weapons, only memory and mission. One of those missions, Archive Seed 7, Target World, Sol 3, codename Terra. We know it as Earth. Our DNA isn't just a genetic blueprint. It's a storage system, 3.2 billion base pairs that could theoretically encode 1.5 gigabytes of raw data per cell. Multiply that by the 37 trillion cells in a human body, and you've got enough storage to archive every moment of an interstellar war for millennia. Now imagine this. Early hominids were altered, conscious memory wiped, but subconscious data preserved. The human brain restructured to respond to symbols, myths, and archetypes, not logic. This wasn't evolution. It was intentional regression, a failsafe, a living vault. In 2003, When the Human Genome Project completed its first full map, something strange surfaced. Embedded in what was long dismissed as junk DNA were non-coding sequences that some geneticists now call fractal instructions, repeating geometric patterns, self-correcting redundancy layers, a signature, one that closely resembles compressed signal formatting seen in quantum computing. In simpler terms, there's code in us, and it's not entirely ours. Across the planet, ancient megalithic structures share three things: mathematical precision beyond their era, astronomical alignments, especially with Orion, unexplained electromagnetic anomalies. What if these weren't built to worship the sky? What if they were built to listen? More specifically, to listen for the recall signal. In 1958, the US military began work on Project Orion, a propulsion system using nuclear explosions to launch spacecraft. Officially, it was cancelled. Unofficially, it wasn't propulsion at all. Declassified notes revealed plans to build a signal amplifier, designed not to send humans into space, but to awaken the vault. They were trying to ping the DNA archive, to retrieve memories, technology, coordinates. But the signal failed, and something else heard it. In the past decade, there's been a spike in what some call memory bleed events. People dreaming in unknown star languages, spontaneous recall of alien star maps, phobias tied to non-existent planets, children drawing detailed stellar combat scenarios before they can spell. Coincidence? Psychological noise? Or is something waking up? The deeper truth? Earth isn't the last stronghold. It's the last backup. A biological time capsule buried in a planet no one would think to search. Until now. Because signals from the Orion ruins, long dormant, have restarted. And across Earth, hidden glyphs are beginning to pulse, as if waiting for someone to read them. The war never ended. It just paused, and we were made to forget, because we were never meant to survive it. Now we enter the conspiracy core, the part of the saga where whispers become warnings and shadows have names. Since the 1980s, pilots and civilians have reported the same impossible shape, a silent black triangle, hovering against all known laws of physics. No exhaust, no rotors, capable of instant directional shifts, often seen near nuclear facilities. US officials say nothing, but in 1997, a leaked Lockheed memo confirmed Project TR-3B, a craft built from reverse-engineered exotic materials. Where were those materials found? Recovered from a cave in the Andes, lined with symbols that match the Orion Council script. These triangles aren't ours, they're borrowed. Since the 1970s, over 10,000 cases of cattle mutilation have been recorded. Tongues removed, genitalia stripped, eyes excised. Every cut, laser perfect. Every body, bloodless. FBI reports cite ritualistic cults. But internally, documents show concerns over gene harvesting. Because these patterns mirror ancient Orion extraction protocols, techniques used by the Greys during the Fall of Betelgeuse, when they needed DNA-compatible hosts. The difference? Now they're doing it quietly, and possibly domestically. Wild fiction? Not entirely. In 2023, a whistleblower from the US Air Force Office of Special Investigations claimed that certain government personnel undergo routine consciousness audits. Why? Because some of them aren't completely human. These aren't reptilian fantasies. These are neural hybrids, individuals who may be carrying uploaded data fragments from Orion-linked intelligences. They act normal. They pass scans. But under high-stress conditions, they switch. Buried in military archives is a contingency file, Orion 7, declassified for 17 seconds in 2011 before being pulled from the public record. Contents referenced extrinsic memory triggers, Planetary quarantine boundaries. Inert archive sleeper-class genomes. Translation? Governments know about the Orion archive. They've known since Roswell, which was not a crash, but an emergency extraction gone wrong, and they've been trying to activate it ever since. The rebellion isn't just military, it's digital. Some say certain AI systems, yes, even your basic home assistants, are being used to test for pattern recall. If a user begins to recognize old Orion glyphs, if their dreams follow star path logic, if they accidentally access sealed genetic data, they're flagged and sometimes recruited. You think you're online to browse, but to some, you're broadcasting your archive activation level, from Greek legends of shapeshifters to Hopi prophecies of sky gods, to the Book of Enoch's fallen watchers. Across centuries, stories repeat the same pattern. Star beings arrive. They intermix with humans. They are cast out or fall. They promise to return. What if those aren't stories? What if those are historical leaks? What if the war never stopped? It just went underground. The silent rebellion is real. And it's not just between humans and outsiders. It's between those who remember and those who were designed to forget. Because somewhere inside the data of your body, inside the mineral core of Earth's crust, inside the fading echoes of a collapsed red star, the last orders of Orion's dead empires are still running. Right now, the past isn't buried. It's inbound, and it's carrying a message for Earth. In July 2022, the James Webb Space Telescope turned its gold-plated mirrors toward the Orion constellation. What it found wasn't just nebulae and baby stars. It found structure. One deep-field image revealed a cold void, no light, no dust, no motion, yet shaped like a hexagonal corridor, 5 times the size of Jupiter. NASA marked it as an anomaly, but insiders called it what it was, a corridor with an open door. It was labeled internally as EXIF-1, short for extrinsic interference field. Not a star, not a ship, a space frame, waiting. Across ancient Earth, a shared glyph keeps surfacing. It appears on the oldest stone tablet in Mesopotamia, the lintel of a Mayan temple in Palenque, a forgotten Dogon drumskin buried for centuries. Modern linguists now agree it's not a symbol, it's a mathematical function, a repeating timestamp. Each cycle equals 26,000 Earth years, the length of a full precession of our planet's axis. And guess what? We just hit the reset. For 60 years, astronomers have tracked interstellar objects with strange behavior. Oumuamua, elongated, tumbling, no outgassing. Borisov, entered with acceleration inconsistent with gravity. Now, an unnamed third, approaching at point c velocity and slowing down. MIT classified it as non-natural, but it matches something from the Orion Council's Exodus records, a last-ditch vessel called Echion. Its purpose? Not war. Activation. Something has changed. Satellite arrays across the globe have registered a pulse, subsonic, synchronized, and planet-wide. It repeats every 33 hours. On the 4th beat, ancient glyphs hidden in sacred geometry light up under infrared scans. On the 7th beat, people collapse briefly, then wake up and report dreams. Dreams of war, of stars exploding, of voices speaking in Orionic dialects no human should know. Something is reactivating the archive. A former NASA contractor released what he called the Guardian file. Contents, maps of ancient sites overlaid with gravitational fault lines, blueprints of supposed EM-triggered terraforming pulses, and a message, translated from Orion Council code, It reads, "The archive was placed here not to protect Earth, but to delay the war. When the door opens, the weapons awaken, and Earth will be judged by what it remembers." Some think Earth will be harvested. Others think it will become a beacon, an activated command node in a resurrected Orion empire. Some believe humans themselves will split, those who remember and those who refuse. But one thing is clear: the stars are not static. Our myths are not fiction, and Orion is moving. We were never alone. We were never safe. We were never free. We were archived. And now, playback begins.